Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar, Female Tech Heroes in Japan and the Netherlands, for a sustainable and diverse future. For the first time, the Embassy of the Netherlands in Japan is teaming up with Female Tech Heroes, High Tech Campus Eindhoven, Women in Technology Japan, and Japan Women Engineers Forum. We are very excited to have 4 distinguished speakers that will share first-hand experiences about diversity in the tech world in Japan and the Netherlands. A few practical remarks. We will work with 2 studios and 2 other locations, both in Japan and in the Netherlands. Today's session will be recorded. Please ask your questions in the chat, and simultaneous interpretation is available. Now, please allow me to give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Peter van der Vliet, Ambassador of the Netherlands in Japan, to make opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Marjolein. Dear guests, I'm delighted to say a few words at the opening of today's webinar, Female Tech Heroes in Japan and the Netherlands for a Sustainable and Diverse Future. The high-tech industry plays a crucial role in tackling the challenges of our societies, from robotization in agriculture and industry to all kinds of high-tech solutions in healthcare, mobility, energy, and communications, and so on. Technological innovation determines how we live and how we work. It defines our well-being. And needless to say that innovation can only be sustainable if it meets the needs of all members of society, men and women. And therefore, women need to be involved much more in tech, or in STEM, to use that acronym, for more diverse solutions and better results. And the business case is clear. Goldman Sachs calculated that Japan's GDP can grow by as much as 10 to 15% if the full economic potential of women is used. That's huge. A lot of work remains to be done to empower women in the economy as a whole and in the tech sector in particular. The Netherlands ranks number 38 in the Global Gender Gap Index, Japan number 121. We must do better, and we can do better. I remain hopeful. I'm hopeful because I see tech heroes like yourselves proving that it can be done. You are pioneers. And I'm hopeful when I read about other success stories and best practices, such as a whole section in this week's New York Times about women in traditionally male-dominated STEM sectors. The title, Heralding a New Generation. And this morning I received a briefing on the visit by US Secretary of State Blinken to Japan earlier this week. Prominently on that agenda, women's economic empowerment. What also gives me hope is pushback from a growing part of the public against unconscious or even conscious gender bias and sexism. Sometimes it takes a while, but to give an example, here in Japan, the Tokyo Organizing Committee for the Olympics and the Paralympics is now headed by a very competent woman, who also immediately increased the number of women on the board of the Olympic Committee. And finally, what I think is hopeful is that we see more and more policy initiatives and legislation that removes barriers for women or reduces unequal opportunities, such as the new 5th Basic Plan for Gender Equality here in Japan. So my personal sense is that a wind of change is blowing, sometimes faintly, but increasing in force nevertheless. And you are very much part of that, as role models and influencers. Please keep doing that. Be that new generation. So I look forward to listening to the first-hand experiences of our distinguished speakers, and I hope that you will enjoy today's webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Now, let's switch to Eindhoven to hear more from Hilde de Vocht and Ingelou Stol about the Female Tech Heroes initiative.
Yes, hello and good afternoon, Japan. And good morning to all the people watching from the Netherlands and Europe. And thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for your nice words and your explanation about the importance of this webinar. We are really looking forward to the next hour. My name is Hilde de Vocht, and next to me stands my lovely colleague, Ingelou Stol. Also invited today are two great speakers from our region. Helen Cardone, Senior Account Manager at ASML, Startup Advisor and Innovation Enthusiast. We also invited Betsy Lindsay, Inspiring Networker and Chief Financial Officer and founder of Aircision, a deep tech startup that builds high-capacity free space optics. We now broadcast live from High Tech Campus Eindhoven, from the conference center. High Tech Campus Eindhoven is the Silicon Valley of Europe, situated in Brainport Eindhoven and one of the smartest regions in the world. Every day, more than 230 companies and 12,000 smart people work here on future technologies and innovations, and we are very, very proud of that. Ingelou and I are both founders of Female Tech Heroes, one of the organizing partners of this webinar. Ingelou, can you briefly explain what Female Tech Heroes does and is?
Definitely. Thank you, Hilde. So thank you for watching. This is the first time that Female Tech Heroes goes international. So we are kind of proud of that, especially with Japan. So thank you for this collaboration and thank you for watching. So Female Tech Heroes is an initiative supported by the High Tech Campus in Eindhoven that strives to create more diversity in tech, more women, more cultural backgrounds, more work experience, ages, religion, all kinds of diversity. Because if we have a diverse tech world, that means we have diverse technology. And that means we have an inclusive society for everyone. So Female Tech Heroes brings people together during tech conferences, dinners, mentor sessions. People coach others. We bring them together. We make sure they can meet each other. We put female and male heroes in the spotlights and tell what they do. And we create awareness in the media and in companies about the importance of diversity in tech and more women in the tech world. So today you're going to meet a few of those tech heroes from Japan, but also from the Netherlands. So be inspired, enjoy. And let's go back to Japan.
Thank you, Eindhoven. Thank you very much, Hilde and Ingelou. Now, please allow me to introduce our first speaker of the day. Miss Annie Chang is an entrepreneur and a pioneer. She is the founder and president of AC Global Solutions, an information technology recruitment agency in Japan. Miss Chang is the founder of Women in Technology Japan. Women in Technology Japan was founded in 2013 with the vision to bring more women into the tech world and to stimulate next generation technology leadership. Ms. Chang is also the vice chair of the Independent Business Committee at the American Chamber of Commerce in Japan and a board member of Startup Lady. She's a strong supporter of gender diversity in the workspace, is passionate about connecting female professionals and also is an angel investor for AI startups by young professionals. Ms. Chang, we look forward to hearing from your perspectives of women economic participation in Japan.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the very warm introduction. I'm very grateful for this opportunity to speak to so many people in Japan, in Netherlands, and in Europe. My name is Annie Chang. We just introduced, I'm the founder of Women in Technology Japan. From now on, I'll call you VJ. VJ is a volunteer organization based in Japan. We have a vision to increase female involvement in technology. We provide free seminars, workshops, and meetups. So if you'd like to know more, please follow us on social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Now, I'm going to talk about women's participation in Japan. If I look at this number, it's not so good, isn't it? But let us focus on the progress we made, which are, first one is women studying STEM is increasing 5% in the past 5 years. That means we will have more female engineers enter in the workforce in the future. And the women in the management role rise 6% in the past 5 years. I think the government's womenomic policy have something to do with it. And there's a new target set to reach 30% of the women in management role by 2030. So I highly recommend all the working women in Japan, please be bold enough to take this challenge. We need your help. Okay, let's look at women's participation in IT industry. If you look at the software, which have huge demand, but women is underrepresented. We really need more women, not just as engineer, but doing sales, marketing, business analysts, project management, data scientists. The data processing percentage is quite high, which is concerning because the AI and robotic will probably replace most of the roles in the near future. The internet service is a bit easier for women to enter too. So I expect this sector will grow. Only 7.5% of the female manager in the tech industry in Japan really sends very strong message that it is still a very male-dominant industry. And overall, 24.5% of the women working in IT-related industry. That really gives a huge opportunity for growth, isn't it? So how do we increase the number? First, let's look at why we need more women in tech. Number one is to stimulate the innovation. Many data shows a diverse environment increase creativity, performance, and innovation. And the pay gap between men and women still exists in many industries in Japan, but not in IT. Women can get equal pay, equal opportunity, and even better pay because the high demand of tech talent. And I know many tech women, they create their own work-life balance. And also, if you have a technical skill, and as a professional, it's very easy to go back to work after childbearing. We know sometimes women quit their job because to give birth, especially in Japan. And we also need more female founders to build their own business and furthermore to tackle the social problem and climate change, and also build a female central technology solutions. And then lastly, I think women can contribute by bringing empathy and compassion to the technology workplace. And I think that is the key to create a more sustainable working culture. So how to get them? How to attract more women to the tech world? I think number one is we have to end the gender label and male stereotype in the tech world. Who said you cannot dress fashionable with high heels and do coding? My friend Yoshida-san, who was a CEO of a British tech company, she has a quote said, keeps your head, heels, and standards high. She was a role model. So we need more role models and tech heroes and leaders, because you can be what you cannot see. And also a very good diversity quota hiring system can increase the number. But the pipeline is very small. So to train the non-tech talent is very important, and equally important to have a very good retention program to make sure they succeed in their job. And lastly, doing a seminar like this is a fantastic way to raise awareness. My previous slide has the data shows 55% of the women are non-regular employees. Unfortunately, they are the ones who get hit the most during the pandemic. And meanwhile, the digital transformation is accelerating. More and more we are live, work, and breathe in the digital space. So I think to enable technology for social good is very crucial at the moment. And women's participation and contribution to the growing digital economy is a must, not a choice. And my last note is very personal. I have two daughters in their 20s. They told me how to carry an eco bag way before it get legislated in Japan. And they also care so much about sustainability, even when they choose a company to work for. So I strongly believe if we continue to mentoring and invest on younger generation, we will have a more sustainable and diverse future. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Now, please allow me to introduce our next speaker. Dr. Merii Kato is a specialist in the Technology Innovation Division at KIOXIA Corporation, Japan. Dr. Kato obtained a PhD in the field of science from Nada's Women's University in Japan in 2006. It was also in 2006 that she joined Toshiba and initially worked as an engineer on flash memory. In 2012, she started the setup of an English education program for engineers designed to accelerate the globalization of Toshiba. Over 100 engineers have joined that program. Dr. Kato joined the Japan Women Engineering Forum, JWEF, in 2017. JWEF was established in 1992 and facilitates networking and information exchange. Since Dr. Kato joined, she has led a number of activities designed for children from elementary school to the university level, all aimed at promoting female empowerment. She was awarded the JWEF Encouragement Special Award in 2018. Dr. Kato, we look very much forward to hearing about your career journey.
Thank you very much. Okay. The title of my presentation today is a Female Japanese Engineer Challenge to Change Society. My name is Merii Kato from KIOXIA. And first of all, I'd like to say my hearty thanks to the members of the Netherlands Embassy and the members of the JWEF who are giving me this great chance to the presentation today. KIOXIA was separated from Toshiba, and we produce memory and SSD for all over the world. And to outline the main points of my presentation, and here is our agenda. First of all, I will show you my career today as a scientist and engineer. And secondly, I will tell you my personal challenges concerning SDG activities, and finally conclusion. I will tell you how I built up my career. So I have one question, do you know him? Maybe for Japanese, he's very famous. His name was Professor Ochanomizu, and he was a character and he was a friend of the Astro Boy, which is one of the most famous animation in Japan. And they were the superheroes in my childhood. And I wanted to be a Professor Ochanomizu because the white coat that he wore looked so smart. And that's why I chose chemistry. And in 2006, I obtained doctorate degree in science, and I worked in technology area for over 10 years. And from 2012, I've started to work in education planning for our engineers. And to accelerate the globalization of engineers, we planned a homestay program for 3 months. And when we chose the candidates, at first, we chose the candidates regardless of gender or they have family or not. And as next step, we asked whether they're willing to join this program or not and be away from home for 3 months. Japan is seen as a high context culture. It means that sometimes the communication is unspoken. So the process of choosing candidates is important to overcome unconscious bias. And from 2019, I have been working in the Technology Innovation Division in charge of recruitment. Lately, lots of Japanese companies have been trying to increase the number of female employees, but have found it very difficult in the technology area. Because please see the data, that this is the latest data of the percentage of female university students among all university enrollment in 2019. In the humanities, the rate is 65%. However, on the contrary, the technology area, women's participation is just 15%. And this is a result the limited number of women involved in technology area in Japanese society. I will show you some data which indicate future career ranking in 2020 for Japan. In the case of boys, all career scientists is ranked in 5th. And we say that it is affected by the hero animation in Japan. And in that animation, the hero is working as a scientist in daily life. However, in the case of the girls, all careers are dominated by workers who don't earn big salaries. So it seems that unconscious bias and lack of role models of society may affect children's future career. Based on my career and Japanese society, I started to explore personal challenges concerning SDG activities. And my goal is to solve the gender gap in Japanese society, especially in technology area. And to achieve the goal, I divide the tasks into 2 parts. First is the unconscious bias, and second is the lack of role models. And that's why I focus on 4 and 5, which indicate quality education and gender equality, respectively. And my first challenge was for elementary school children. We published manga. It is a Japanese cartoon in 2018, Secret of the Flash Memory. And we donate the books to all elementary schools and all public libraries throughout Japan. And look at the picture. The hero is a girl who is sending a non-verbal message that we can overcome the unconscious bias. And with my career as engineer, I know that engineering is creative. And I want all elementary school children, not only boys but also for girls, to have a chance to know it. And my second activity was for junior and high school girls. I joined summer science school in 2018, 2019, and 2020. At the event, I told girls that how technology is attractive and have courage to choose the career as an engineer, because lots of girls were afraid to be the minority in society. My career is exceedingly rare because it is considered natural for engineers to specialize in one field. However, in my opinion, that now the technology innovation speed is becoming faster. So it is important for engineers to widen our area of growth. And in addition, to accelerate the women's empowerment is significant for our future. JWF, once in a year, JWF gives an award to the person who can be a role model of Japanese or female engineers, and I received it in 2018. I experienced some difficulties, but now I'm truly satisfied with my career. And the most important thing for each woman is to take a first step, even if it is a small one. And I strongly believe that all women take action. We can overcome the gender gap and we can change the society. For our sustainable and diverse future, let's take action together as a female tech heroes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kato. That was really interesting presentation, and I think you touched upon many topics there. If I may ask you one question.
Yeah.
In your presentation, you addressed the high context culture in Japan and the relation to the unconscious bias that's present. Would you be able to elaborate a little bit on what that meant in your career, and also what advice you have for people to deal with those situations?
Okay, thank you very much. So it is common for a Japanese company that the manager decides the career. And in that case, some male managers tend to think that it's better not to ask. So for example, in the case of the homestay program, we need to leave home for 3 months. And if the women have children, maybe they will need to think how to manage the situation. So for the both, I think that to ask the chance is a kind of kindness, and they don't ask it, and because the communication is unspoken. So, but in the case of maybe Europe, you ask you directly, right? So maybe there are big differences. I think by preparing this presentation, I understand that we have some cultural differences, and that's why that in the case of Japanese women, I think we need to tell our will, how we want to set up my career directly to our boss. That's my idea.
Thank you. And I understand that's also what you did in your career and what is really helping you to get very far.
Thank you very much.
So thank you. Ms. Chang, if I may get you into the studio again.
Yes.
You seem to definitely encourage women to move to the tech sector. And I'm really curious to hear from you for women that have a background that is not in engineering or tech. What opportunities do you see for them to enter the sector? Because it can be a little bit daunting.
Yeah, it can be daunting, but you have to make commitment. But there are so many things you can do. In the software company, you can start as a sales assistant, and also depends on the product. Some of the very complicated product is probably easier to. It's probably hard to start as a salesperson, but you can always get in there, be starting as inside sales, which doing more research, and or to do more sales assistant. I think sales related to sales is a good way to start. It doesn't require really a lot of technical knowledge, and you can learn on the jobs. That's why I think, but it's the commitment you have to make.
Thank you
Because
very much. And I think you are a true example of that yourself, because I understand you have a background in literature. So for all women that still are a bit in doubt, I think we can learn from your experience, Ms. Chang. So now, let's move to the second part of today's webinar. And that means we will fly to the other side of the world, to Eindhoven back again.
Okay, thank you Marjolein and welcome back to Eindhoven, where we will have Helen Cardone on stage. Helen is a real globetrotter. She's born in Iran and she's currently Senior Account Manager for ASML, for Japan, and one of the world's leading manufacturers of chip-making equipment. That's ASML. And Helen received a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering and a Master of Science in Computer Sciences from Tohoku University in Sendai, Japan. And she is one of our female tech heroes role models. In all her functions, she actively promotes diversity and inclusion as a driving force for collaboration and innovation. And Helen will explain to you the situation in the Netherlands with regard to diversity in the technical world. Helen, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Ingelou. Good morning, people joining from the Netherlands, and good afternoon, good evening to friends and colleagues and female and male from Japan. Today, I would like to talk about situation in the Netherlands, but before that, I want to show why I'm really passionate having about more women in tech industry. So. Just briefly, I've both had a background and experiences in Japan through my studies, but also working at Frisco Semiconductor, and also in the Netherlands in semiconductor high-tech industries. And what I always saw, I was one of the few women working with a lot of very fun, nice male colleagues. But there is still a lot can be done and achieved there. So maybe looking at technology, which is I'm very passionate about, what's the challenge of technology? I think one of the biggest challenge of technology is if you do a quick Google search, is that technology is male. And it's nothing bad about it, but I think there is a lot that we are missing by that. Woman has contributed through the history to the technology innovation, but one thing is they're not been recognized for it. And the other thing is, if you look at the what we have done and achieved so far, it's like a one size fits man type of innovation. So men has been sitting in the labs, in the teams, in the boardrooms, thinking and brainstorming how we can tackle humanity's problems and try to come up with solutions that sort of feels like one solution that fits the whole spectrum of the society. I think if you look at your phone you have in your hands, is it too big for you? If you go to a doctor that sometimes subscribes medicine that are not really working for you and sometimes harms your body, If you're working in a field, in a lab, in a clean room, in a hospital where your clothing doesn't fit you, or you might get injured, or you cannot easily change because the overalls are not very comfortable. These are not only the problems because the things are not good, but these are also problems that a lot of women face, because the technology, the solutions, the products has been designed by men and tested by men, and majority of the tests has been done with men samples. So it is very important, if you want to have sustainable solutions that fits, addresses 50% of the society, the female as well, that we have more women in the development teams, that their ideas and their way of thinking, but also in practice using and testing them has been done. There's a very nice book about this in The Invisible Woman. I recommend, if you're passionate about knowing what the lack of female representation in technology development has resulted. I recommend you to read that. For that, I would like to give a specific example to industry that I've been working on for a long time and I'm very passionate about, and that's automotive safety. If you look at, I mean, the automotive industry is one of the industries that's really innovated itself, coming from a mechanical car, causing a lot of pollutions, and so on. They have really stepped forward. It's innovating a lot, supporting the global challenges, looking at sustainability, but also more and more looking at driver safety, making it more personalized and fuel-efficient technologies. But to be honest, automotive industry is a dominant, male-dominated industry. I worked in automotive industry in Japan, also here in the Netherlands. But the fact is, if you look at, for example, the data from the US, most of these purchases are done by women, even as a family car, or even if a husband wants to buy a car for himself. As a family, women are really involved in purchasing decision makings. Also, more and more women working and going far away from home to commute, to do things. So a lot of women also spending more money on buying cars. But has the automotive industry really taken that into account to address the needs of female buyers and users? If you're really looking at that, what we hear about personal cars that really, for me, sometimes is disappointing, is that personalization of car for women needs ends up looking at making it a pink color, is making it more suitable for mothers with a lot of children. Not really, I guess the female drivers' needs are not really represented. It's just the same team that is developing the car for years is trying to think, how would a female driver wants to use the car? And some examples of it I put here, and you can see, funnily, through years, it hasn't changed. We have a pink car in La Femme in 1950s that is pink and has a female touch, to Honda Fit that that has Honda, she's again a pink car. So you see, through the years, through all the innovations, the representation of women in automotive industry, it really hasn't changed, and this needs to be changed. But it's only, for me, it's more than just having a pink car or a blue car or a car with a more horsepower or things like that. It's more, also goes deep down when we're designing a lot of these technologies, like this case. Even you have the best intentions, sometimes the result is opposite. So car safety is a very good example, and Volvo, I think, is a very good example of that. Volvo is known for safety. They always score highest in safety tests and regulations. But one of the fundamental problems was all the dummies, the dolls they used in their cars to test different situations were based on an average European male, a 70-something kilogram man, 180 centimeter, body type that's been used for all sort of safety tests. And you have a car that scores 5-star, but in reality, because it's not really inclusive in their test definition and practices, you see that studies shows that women have higher risk of injuries in case of accident, while we know statistically women are the most conscious and safest drivers on the road. And the size of neck, the size of body. And the list goes on. There are a lot of examples of that. I think COVID, for example, was a good example. We have a huge population of female working in healthcare industries, but all the clothing is designed, for example, for men. So the nurses working 24/7 have really hard time taking very short breaks, because then the overalls are not designed for a female body. So I would like to ask everybody to take that into account, and next time you're sitting at the table discussing a new solution, think about, am I only thinking of my own problems or the problems I know, or there are other things also, especially female-related topics that we have to include. But let's move on, but with this in our heads, move on in the case of the Netherlands. Statistically, I mean, Netherlands is a very progressive country. We just had yesterday our elections. The second party leader is also a female, a lot of female involved in the workforce, in labor market. And the picture on the left shows that number of female participation is really high. But at the same time, we have a lot of women that working part-time. So in the Dutch society, as a girl grows up, a lot of times you have been encouraged to go to a study, take a job that you can fit into a woman's life, having kids, having a partner who's busy, and things like that. So that's, although there are a lot of women working for workforce, impacts the participation of women in a very higher management positions, but also in the tech field. So if you look at on the picture on the right, the participation of Dutch female in tech labor market, to say so, is very low compared to even average in the developed countries. So there are lots of reasons. I mentioned, for example, the education system. We also talked this morning in lack of role models, but lack of quotas. And I think there is a lot of, especially the past 3-4 years, a lot of positive initiatives from a government part, but also creating role models like female tech heroes, inspiring 50, but also at education and university levels to have more and more girls encouraged and supported to join the tech world. So I just want to wrap it up. I think the progress is ongoing, but there's still a lot to be done to achieve a real, equal, diverse, inclusive culture at work. But in the meantime, I want to say also, ladies, we are also have to take our chances. We really need to surround ourselves by like-minded men and women. Let's not forget about the role of male. Again, show, like as Chancellor said, like we can run in hills, so we can do different things, be our authentic self. Take time for ourselves, also think about ourselves, because that's we tend to put ourselves at the last usually, and also network. I think networking is a very important thing. So join the dinner, join the discussions, and don't be afraid of that, and also create the seat that you want to be in it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Helen, for sharing some great insights, examples, and learnings with us. Now we move on with our next speaker, Betsy Lindsay. Betsy is a financial advisor and investor with a great passion for innovation and deep tech. In total, she brings over 20 years of experience to the table. In the United States and Hong Kong, she worked in banking with technology startups and scale-ups. Prior to joining her current startup Aircision, Betsy was the managing director of investor relations at Hightech Excel, a deep tech venture builder based here in Eindhoven at the Hightech campus. Betsy guided over 60 teams through the fundraising process and growth phase of their development. In her story, she will take you from the banking world to startup life and from the United States to Eindhoven. Betsy, can I give the word to you?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. I'm going to have a very personal story today. Where do I start? I basically came here today to tell you about my journey to entrepreneurship, because it really, it wasn't a direct route. It wasn't something I said when I was 5 years old that I was going to start a company. That was not me. That might have been Steve Jobs, but that wasn't me. I always had a global mindset. And I think that openness sort of led me to be interested in things around the world. When I was young, I lived on the East Coast, but my family took me to the West Coast when I was 11. And that really started this, curiosity, I guess that's the word. And I do believe that leads me to think about how to do things differently and not accept the status quo of, you're not supposed to do that, and that's as children, sometimes we're told girls do this and boys do that. So in any case, I've had quite a life living in different locations around the world. And when I was about 23, I moved to Seattle, and I worked in the skyscraper there in the middle. And I really just, moved myself across the country. My parents were still living on the East Coast, and I just took it on myself. In Seattle, Seattle is very much a lot like Japan. If you've ever been there, we've even borrowed some of your sports heroes. This is Ichiro, one of my favorite Seattle Mariners. I've also studied Soto Zen Buddhism. I believe that in nature and how do we bring that into our lives in an everyday way. And I think that's something I share with the Japanese culture. In '99, just more about my background that leads me to why I'm in entrepreneurship. I started work with a bank called Silicon Valley Bank. Silicon Valley Bank is a bank for entrepreneurs. And that's when I first started realizing how much fun people were having on the other side of the table. I was a banker and a financier, but I realized, the people on the other side of the table, that's where I wanted to be. And I learned how to build financial projections with companies, learned how to help companies get introductions to investors. I did a lot of that at Silicon Valley Bank. And basically in 2006, my life changed. My Dutch husband said, let's get married and let's move to Hong Kong, where Hong Kong was an opportunity for his work, but I found work there working for Wells Fargo Bank, which was also based in Hong Kong. And I don't know if you can see with the way that the screen is at the moment, but my office was right there on the waterfront, which was really fun. I'm always about fun. Mixing it together. This is actually a group of Dutch entrepreneurs who actually came together and started a dragon boat team in Hong Kong, and we raced against local teams and lost. Unfortunately, the Hong Kong teams are the best. In 2008, children came, and yes, it did put a kink in my career. I have to be clear, having my son changed things radically. And I did end up working part-time in Hong Kong, which was really unusual. In 2011, the family decided, let's move to the Netherlands where it might be easier to have a work-life balance. And arriving in the Netherlands, I arrived pregnant and for the first time in my life, unemployed. So that was a really big deal for me, a real life changer. But it was the best thing I ever did. And there's the example there. That's my daughter, Rosemary. In 2015, I found Expat Spouses Initiative, which is a really supportive group here in the Netherlands, which really believes in women. And it really strives to match women who've come to Eindhoven with their spouses with career opportunities. In the Netherlands, I think it's particularly hard to network if you don't have your own network. It's not a, what I mean by that is it was so challenging to get into the business network because my husband said, well, I can't share my business network with you because that's my business network. And there's a very big separation between personal network and business network. So even asking friends that I knew, can you help me with a job? That wasn't there. And this group really was inspirational for me. I am a networker. I really enjoy meeting and talking with people. So that actually is a big skill of mine and something that I realized maybe I should focus on that skill as it's being my unique skill. And I think with all women, we should always focus on what makes us us and bring that to the table. And I also say creativity is something that I'm all about, even though I'm from finance. And I really think, that women bring a lot to the table in that regard. I joined High Tech Excel as a result of the Expat Spouses program. And High Tech Excel, as Hilde explained earlier, is a venture builder program where we at High Tech Excel, we're visiting with research institutes like CERN and ESA, the European Space Agency, Fraunhofer, and other institutes where TNO, for example, the Dutch National Institute for Physics, and we would take raw intellectual property and bring it through a program, a 9-month program. And there I really spend a lot of energy, counseling folks on how to actually build financials that made sense in the context of a startup, how to also pitch yourself to a startup, to investors, to investors. And these things are things that women really can do. And I, it really, at this point in my career, I was already 20 years consulting and working with businesses. And I started to think, well, maybe this is something for me. And if you can see in your top left of your screen, I really believe that Guus Verix has been a big mentor to me in feminism. I know this sounds strange to some people that a man can do that, but I think Female Tech Heroes takes that example as well. I really believe that Guus believes in women and really made sure that we were standing side by side, shoulder to shoulder. And he really inspired me to take up a founding role in Aircision. The values of High Tech Excel really shine. If you read here, diversity is a really big, really the summary of all of these things. What are we trying to do? Provide impact and really build technologies for a more sustainable world. And I think he was one that really taught me to really wholly grasp what diversity means and really, as a woman, prioritize other women and try to support other women. I think that's, as well as other races. And I think that's something that I think only in recent years I really thought about in that way. I spend a lot of energy talking about this, but also, sharing my story of Aircision. And I really feel that the Dutch ecosystem is really supportive of women in general. I think if I compare it to the US, I think the US is that women tend to compete against each other, where here in the Netherlands, there's more of a competitive, less of a competitive spirit and more supportive spirit. But here, I would say it's not perfect. This is an example of me ringing the gong at the Amsterdam Stock Exchange.
Betsy, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
One last minute for you.
Okay, I will quickly go into this and just say, that here you still see a lot of men side by side, shoulder with me, and I am doing that. So let me quickly show you my trip to Japan. 2018, I went on this trip to Japan, and I was one of very few women in the room, but I was able to give a great presentation about what we do at High Tech Excel and what some of the other startups are doing at High Tech Excel. I really enjoyed the nature and the aspect of what was going on in Japan. In 2019, as I mentioned, I actually decided to jump into entrepreneurship myself. And at Aircision, we aim to really use technology to help break down the digital divide. We believe that throughout the world, we know that 45% of the world still has little or no connection to the internet. And that's very surprising. Here in the Netherlands and in Japan, there's many people have amazing connectivity, very high speed connectivity, even fiber to the home. Well, that's not the case worldwide. And why is that not the case? It's because fiber is too expensive, and wireless technologies are simply not doing the job. At Aircision, we're building a free space technology, free space optics technology that will actually be going long distances, up to 10 kilometers and 100 gigabits per second in the next 4 years. That's our ambition and that's our goal. But I think most importantly, I'm going to skip ahead to all my slides, but I want to show you that I'm still one of 8 as a woman in my company. And we are really making it a priority to put advisors in our board that are women. That's something that we really believe in. And we're looking for diversity as well in race. And that's really quickly what I'm up to. And if you have any questions for me, I'd love to hear them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Got a question? Yeah.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Betsy. And thank you, Helen, for both presentations. And I think I learned one thing from your presentation, that the future is bright, but that there's still a lot of homework to do. Hey, you also quoted this, Helen.
Yes.
Maybe one last question for Helen. Considering all the improvement areas to improve gender equality and reduce the gender gap, if you have to choose one topic to focus on, what would that be?
A good question. I think I would say unconscious bias, because after all, it all boils down to that. Everybody wants to make best of the situation. I think a lot of people, I would say, don't really have that intention to either discriminate against women, or they say science is not for women, but in practice we see still there is a huge gap. And unconscious bias, tackling that, making yourself aware of the bias you have, will help a lot. It comes in recruitment processes, in promotion, in retention processes, but also at schools when the teacher advising energy education to students. So I think as a whole, as a society, if we are working on that, we will progress much faster.
Okay, looking at the time, we really need to wrap up here in Eindhoven. So sorry, no more time for further questions, but you can find our details everywhere on the internet. You can contact us if you want to learn more about diversity and inclusion in the Netherlands. And now for the final words, we switch back to the studio in Japan.
Thank you all very much for sharing your first-hand experiences with us. Definitely made me more curious about the tech industry, and I'm certain that it did so for others as well. Thank you for the colleagues here as well who made this possible practically and joined with the technical servers and the interpreters that helped. Last but not least, I want to thank you all for your participation today. Please know that at the embassy we're available for any questions that you have. By the end of May, the embassy will also launch an innovation parade that will display innovations that are jointly made by Japanese and Dutch entrepreneurs. So if you would like to have your innovation on display, please contact us. Or if you want to visit, please contact us as well. So once again, thank you all very much for joining us today, and virtual applause for all our speakers today. Thank you.